Hello, and we're back again, doing Eleanor of Aquitaine. Carrying on from last week where we did Empress Matilda, we're now going to be talking about her daughter-in-law, Eleanor of Aquitaine. And I wanted to tell these ladies' stories together because they are so closely linked. So if you haven't watched Matilda, please do go back and watch Matilda and then come and see Eleanor of Aquitaine. Eleanor of Aquitaine is born around 1122 and grew up in Poitiers in the Angevin Empire at a very flamboyant and romantic court. She was taught arithmetic, history, astrology, Latin, embroidery, dancing, singing. She could play the harp. She loved to go riding, hawking and hunting. She was extroverted, lively, intelligent and very strong-willed. The Duchy of Aquitaine was the largest and richest province of France at the time. After the death of her brother William, she became the heir presumptive to her father's domains. Aged 13, Eleanor, I don't understand my notes. At just age 13, Eleanor was the wife of King Louis VII, Queen of France, and Duchess of Aquitaine. I think that's what I've written. It's 1137. Yes, that's right. Anyway, she's married off to Louis VII, King of France. The king was madly in love with his bride and he granted her every whim. It took 8 years for them to conceive a child, and it was a girl, which, as we know, is not really ideal back in those days. In the autumn of 1145, Pope Eugene III requested Louis lead a crusade to the Middle East to rescue the Frankish kingdoms there from disaster. And Eleanor went too. She took the second army over afterwards. In 1147, she received a blessing from the Pope and went on her merry way with her men. In spring 1148, she sought refuge in Antioch with her husband. In spring of 1148, Eleanor sought refuge in Antioch with her uncle, Raymond of Poitiers. The intimacy between them sparked a little bit of scandal and gossip throughout Europe. They were supposedly very close. Read into that what you will. Eleanor, what's wrong with me today? Eleanor sought an annulment in 1149 while the failed crusade trailed home. In 1150, she gave birth to another daughter, Alex, and on the 11th of March 1152, her and her husband met at the castle of Bourgogne to dissolve the marriage. They had, after the birth of their daughter, they had given up on making the relationship work. In 1151, peace talks brought the future Henry II, Matilda's son, to Paris, where he met Eleanor. Just 8 weeks after her divorce from Louis, Eleanor married Henry on the 18th of May, 1152. On the 25th of October, 1154, Henry becomes king, and Eleanor, Honey's joining in now, was crowned Queen of England in December 1154. Can you scooch, please? Thank you. Honey. Sorry, I just had to move my dog. She was like, she had her butthole facing the camera and she just wouldn't move. Can you go, please? I'm so sorry, Eleanor. This video is turning into a clusterfuck. That is the only word for it. So Henry becomes king, as we know from Matilda's story, and she is crowned Queen of England in December 1154. Over the next 15 years, she bore Henry II 5 sons and 3 daughters, and together they ruled England and almost all of France. The marriage was tumultuous, argumentative. Henry openly kept mistresses and had illegitimate children, which was kind of the norm then. We don't really know much about the relationship between Matilda and Eleanor, which is kind of unfortunate because I would love to know what these two women made of one another. Matilda died in 1167, and once Matilda is done representing her son in France at age 43, Eleanor's political career is really about to begin. So Aquitaine defied the authority of Henry and answered only to their duchess. In 1168, Eleanor governed in Henry's name in Poitiers. She exercised independent rule and kept her own court, and this is supposed to be where courtly love was born. Swear to God, I have 3 dogs, and every single one of them have tried to get into this video somehow. We've had Digger coming in, we've had Honey pointing a bum hole at the camera, and then he's sat down there scratching because he wants to come up. Scruffy, you're going to sit there quietly, please? Thank you. We'll try and get through the rest of this video. Please? Please, can we just do Eleanor of Aquitaine? Thank you. Okay, right. Hope you're keeping up with me because I'm completely lost. So anyway, Eleanor is ruling France on behalf of her husband, keeping her own court, and this is supposed to be where courtly love was born. The idea of courtly love, of knights and favours and jousts and all that kind of Camelot stuff. This is supposed to be where it's born. Okay, right. I just had to sort the dogs out again. One of them was trying to get something from under the table. I have no idea. My dog mum's stress levels. Sit down, please. At an all-time high right now. Right. Now Digger's got hiccups. Alright, mate? Oh, God. In March 1173, annoyed at his lack of power, Henry II's son fled to Paris and launched a revolt against his dad at Castle Chinon, along with his brothers Richard and Geoffrey, and mum, Eleanor. A queen rebelling against her husband had never happened before. This was unprecedented. She rode south to gather support for her sons, but was captured on the way back and sent to the king at Rouen. On the 8th of July, 1174, Eleanor was taken to England and imprisoned for the next 15 years and was not allowed any contact with her sons. The boys continued to rebel. Young Henry unfortunately caught dysentery in June 1183 and died, which can't have been good for their rebellion efforts. The conflict didn't stop until 1189, when Henry II died at Chinon, aged 46, and Richard, the second son, also known as the Lionheart, was his heir, and the first thing he did was free his mother when she was aged 65. No, you're not coming up. You've caused enough trouble showing your butthole to the world. We're trying to tell the story of Eleanor of Aquitaine, and you're showing off your bumhole. Just sit down and be quiet for 5 minutes. The Duchy of Aquitaine and Kingdom of England was granted to Eleanor to rule because Richard was off on crusade. For the remainder of Richard's absence, she exercised a considerable degree of influence over the affairs of England. On his way back from the Holy Land, Richard was captured, and it was Eleanor who raised the ransom to free him and travelled over to rescue him. Richard died in 1199, struck by a stray arrow at a French siege, and Eleanor then worked to secure the succession of her youngest son John, the all-famous King John from Robin Hood of the Magna Carta. At 75, Eleanor travelled the length and breadth of France to secure support for John's rule, Eventually, she returned to Fontevraud Abbey to rest, and Eleanor died on the 31st of March 1204 at age 80. She was laid to rest at Fontevraud next to her husband, Henry II, with her son Richard on the other side of her. So here's some facts about Eleanor of Aquitaine. Fun facts. The only object connected with Eleanor that still survives is a rock crystal vase she gave to her first husband Louis as a wedding gift, which can be seen at the Louvre. Henry II's greatest mistress and a source of embarrassment for Eleanor was a woman called Rosalind Clifford, or Fair Rosalind. Their affair was completely public knowledge by 1166 and continued for the next 10 years until Rosalind died in 1176 at not even 30 years old. It was quite normal for kings to keep mistresses. It was not normal for them to be flaunted in public. That was embarrassing for the queen. He possibly flaunted Rosalind to provoke Eleanor into seeking an annulment, but it didn't work. And it's rumoured that Eleanor had Rosalind poisoned or placed her in a bathtub and had an old woman cut her arms so she bled to death. Also, she could have been roasted, stabbed, and much, much more. Take your pick. Most chroniclers agree that by 1173 Eleanor was held in close captivity and wouldn't have had the chance to carry that out. But it's an intriguing myth. Nonetheless, the murder story seems to be a Tudor and Stuart invention of fiction, but it has kind of persisted to this day, so interesting. Jean Plady's novel, The Court of Love, is a fictionalized autobiography of Eleanor, should you like your Jean Plady novels and want to go and have a read. Eleanor has inspired numerous films, books, TV shows, operas, and video games, and also a Shakespeare play. Her daughter, by Henry II, was Eleanor of Castile, to be featured in another episode of Herstory. And once again, I'm going to refer to She-Wolves by Helen Castor, who really helped me research this and put this episode together. Fantastic book, fantastic 2-part documentary TV series. Please go and watch She-Wolves and enjoy the wonderfulness that is Helen Castor. And thank you once again for joining me. Go and have a look over on my Facebook page, The Herstory Girls. That's where you'll find the majority of my content. I try to post something pretty much every day, something cool and random and herstory related. You'll also find the polls on there so that you can get involved in the next episode. Who's going to be in the next episode? Visit my Patreon page, give me a subscribe, give me a like, all that stuff, blah, blah, blah. And I will see you next week for a next installment of Herstory. Ciao.